Hello, heathens. Thank you so much for joining me today. So today I am going to be doing a top 5 dark romance blank. So I may have mentioned that I've really gotten into my kind of dark romance era and my dark romantasy era, and I'm reading loads and loads of those books. And I'll be talking more about that in my plans for next month and the next few months. But today I'm combining one of my other loves with that, which is vampires. Yes, I love vampires. Is anybody shocked? So today's top 5, and I'll be doing loads of these videos because I've got lots of different themes and genres kind of within the dark romance umbrella, is top 5 dark romances featuring vampires. So in a way you could call these romantasy, paranormal. Also, let's just have a special word for my fabulous shirt today. It's this gorgeous like cut off rugby shirt and it says death on the back, right? And it's Mary Wyatt, and I went to the Brighton Tattoo Convention, so I've still got my convention armband on there, and I love a tattoo convention. This one was fantastic, had the best time. I got a tarot reading, which was incredible. The bands were incredible last night. We had the best time. And I got this from the Mary Wyatt stand. I kind of always go to the same stands. I went to the Mary Wyatt stand last year and got a fantastic shirt. And then also, holy hell, oh my God, they do the best jewelry. So I was wearing this yesterday. And don't worry, I will get into the books. You can skip over this if you're not interested. But I was wearing this. This is chainmail with this giant safety pin necklace. And I got this last year from Holy Hell, and then this year I got an incredible necklace. I'll show you that next time, but also look at those earrings. Are they not just? I thought it was perfect for this video. So vampires, dark romance. Sorry, that was an aside. I had to show that off because, and also check out Mary Wyatt and Holy Hell. They're incredible. So dark romance, vampires. Like I said, I'm combining 2 of my favorite loves. I do have my top 5. I'm going to go in reverse order, but I will give a special mention to this here. This is Laurell K. Hamilton's Guilty Pleasures. This is the first in the Anita Blake Vampire Hunter series. This is more paranormal, dark romance. This first one is not particularly explicit at all. It's not, I would say, spicy at all, really. And but it kind of ramps up throughout the series, but it's such a fun paranormal vampire romance series, like one of the OG ones. And if you haven't gotten into this yet, I would definitely say Guilty Pleasures, read it, and then read the entire Vampire Hunter series. I am working my way through it at the moment, so I'll do a video more around that. But I have my 5 here. So the first one, coming in at number 5, is The Poisoner by Ivy Ophelia. Also fabulous cover. So this one I've had for a while. It's indie pub. So again, I'm really trying to get more, or not trying, wanting to get more into the indie published books because, and like the self-published books, because actually they do dark romance particularly the best. So this one is about the poisoner. She is our main character. So we've got the creature and the poisoner, and you get alternating POVs in this book. There's also really cool artwork, and I'll show you while I'm talking. So at the end of each chapter, you get this like gorgeous artwork. So you can tell by the clothes that they're wearing that this is kind of set in Victorian-ish London. And you have our main character, the poisoner. Her father has recently died and she's taken over his kind of apothecary. And he was a chemist. He studied all sorts of, chemistry and plants and poisons, and she has kind of taken over the mantle. She also has a bit of a sideline going, and she's called the Poisoner because if women are having particular trouble with the men in their lives, and, law enforcement ain't helping, she provides them with certain special poisons to solve the problem. So she kind of does that on the side. She's a bit of a killer on the side, right? And then this is a little bit of so this is a vampire romance, but is also sort of a stalker kind of romance. So enter the creature, Silas, who is a vampire, and he kind of becomes obsessed with her. So he's really giving, Haunting Adeline Zaid energy. He leaves her some gifts. I mean, severed finger, anyone? But he kind of becomes obsessed with her, and he sort of stalks her. Please read the trigger warnings. So Ivy Ophelia does put the trigger warnings. She particularly warns about a chapter towards the end of the book that may be really difficult for you to read. It involves essay, so please, if you have any triggers, please read the trigger warnings. And like I said, she actually does warn you about a certain chapter, so there is a level of spice in here. It is very much a dark romance. I love the kind of the setting of Victorian London. I thought it was a bit of a different take on a vampire romance novel. I'd not read this kind of take on it. And the fact that she herself is a poisoner, they have a very kind of combative relationship. She's not one of the classic Victorian girls that'll just sit and keep her mouth shut, which I loved. So I loved kind of the banter between her and Silas. Like I said, he's kind of very obsessed stalkery in his advances of her. And then she gets a certain gift and she sort of scolds Silas for it, and he's just like, no, that wasn't me. And we realize that there may be another creature after her with less than honorable intentions. So this kind of, again, if you've read There Are No Saints, the Sophie Lark, which I'm going to get to that in another video. Damn, that's good. But where you have these two kind of serial killers kind of like vying over the attention of the main character, it's a little bit like that, because you realize that there's a secondary creature. It's really interesting. I thought the middle part lagged a little bit. So I rate my books in the scale of I love them, or I like them, or I really didn't like them. And to be fair, there aren't many of those because I'm being ruthless on DNFing. So generally it'll be like, I really didn't like it, I just DNF'd it. Or it'll be, I liked it, which is like a 3.5 star to 4-star book, and then like I loved it, which is a 4.5, 5, 6-star book, right? So this falls into the like category. And like I said, just a bit of a different take. I loved the setting. I loved her as a character. I think where it fell a little bit flat for me was in the middle. I think it lagged a little bit. And also, I wasn't that invested in the creature and the poisoner as a couple. Silas didn't do it for me. But it does have all of those elements. If you think any of that sounds interesting and you want a different kind of dark romance take on a vampire novel, The Poisoner by Ivy Ophelia. Then at number 4, we have Beautiful Villain. This is by Rebecca Kenny. Now, again, this has sat on my shelf for ages and I kept meaning to read it and I didn't. And I think when I was doing a video on the lowest rated books on my Goodreads, this was one of the ones that came up. And I don't know why. So I personally really like this. So this is a retelling of The Great Gatsby with vampires and set kind of in the modern era. So it's essentially a dark romance with the kind of the vampire element in it. It is very contemporary, which I like in kind of contemporary romance type of books. You know, there's mentions of Halsey, there's the technology in it. And I know some people will say, oh, it dates the book, but I'm reading the book now. It makes sense to me now. I don't care what happens in 10 years' time, okay? So if you're reading it now, I love kind of the very contemporary, taking Gatsby out of the 20s and making it very contemporary. The parties that Gatsby throws in here. So we've got our main character, Daisy, who, so in this book, she's 22. So this is, I would say, again, there's spice in this. I would say this is new adult to adult. This isn't YA. This is definitely, I think for me, the writing falls more in sort of new adult to adult. But like I said, I really, really enjoyed this. So you have Daisy, she's 22. She has come back to live in the town with her parents where she grew up after college. She's just had a really bad breakup with Tom. Tom was a dick, okay? He kind of mentally and emotionally and physically abused her in their relationship. She's finally broken up with him. It's been really difficult for her. And her friend invites her to go to a party, and her friend is like, oh, you should come to this party, it's amazing. There's this guy in town, he's bought this amazing house and he throws these incredible parties. So she goes, and when they get there, she's like, oh, what's the guy's name, like the owner of this house? And her friend's like, oh, it's Gatsby. And she's like, who Gatsby? And it turns out it's Jay Gatsby, who was her childhood friend and kind of sweetheart when they were around 14, 15 years old. And then her parents, I think they're in pharmaceuticals, and they made like a discovery and they became very wealthy and they moved away. And she was, of course, in a different socioeconomic and economic bracket. And even though she tried to keep in touch with Jay, he refused to kind of email her back or call her back or anything, and they lost touch. So she's quite flabbergasted when she's at one of these lavish, amazing parties in this incredible house, and she sees that it's Jay Gatsby, her childhood friend, and she's like, you're 24. where did you get all this wealth from? It's insane. So she does very much question it, because you're like going, the guy's 24, like, how did this happen? And he tells her something, she didn't quite believe it. And as you can imagine, he sells insurance, life insurance. You know, there's a certain way that you can have your life insurance if you're a daredevil, and you know, things go wrong and you can just come back to life. So it's their romance, and it really hits a lot of the notes of the original Gatsby story, which I really love. It also very much reads like one of my favorite films of all time is The Great Gatsby, the Baz Luhrmann version. So it kind of puts that in mind in the descriptions of the clothes and the parties and his house. And the thing I love about Jay is that he's really trying. He loves Daisy. He wants Daisy. He's doing all of this to impress Daisy, as the original Gatsby did. And I really like their romance. I really like her cousin Nick. So there's a male romance as well as with Jay's best friend Cody and her cousin Nick. And then there's this kind of added complication of Jay may be a vampire. But what's also interesting, and she has her own power as well, Daisy. So she has this thing where she can kind of lower her voice and speak in a certain tone, and people do what she says. It's very cool. So they try to figure out what that's all about. And there's also the vampire lore, I guess, in this is really interesting. So this is described more as a genetic mutation, and a doctor kind of discovered this genetic mutation rather than undead. They're not undead, they're alive, but they have the special genetic mutation in these two stomachs, and it's really interesting. And like I said, it's really contemporary, which I loved. I thought this was a great book. Rebecca Kenny has a new book that I absolutely want to get, which is, again, a reimagining, but this time of the portrait of Dorian Gray. And I think it's called, oh God, I can't remember what it's called, but I was like, it's another dark romance, but reimagining of Dorian Gray. And I thought that was amazing. And like I said, the law's a bit different. Also in The Poisoner, we've got a forked tongue and spikes on a certain part of his anatomy. I'll leave that up to you to imagine. But so very different takes on what vampires look like and how they originate. So that's really interesting. Then coming in at number that's 5, 4, 3. Yeah, I can count. Coming in at number 3 is Blood Orange. This is by Karina Halley. And spoiler alert, the next book is Black Sunshine by Karina Halley. So I am obsessed with Karina Halley. I love her books. When I initially read Blood Orange, full disclosure, I was like, I liked it. I loved the setting. I loved the Dracula reimagining, but I felt like it had a little too much. The spice was amazing. Don't get me wrong. I loved the spice, but there was almost, I wanted more storyline. So this isn't my absolute favorite, but actually I think about this book a lot. And initially I was like, this is actually part of a duet. So this story does conclude in this book, but then you have a follow-on story in the next one. And I was kind of umming and ahhing whether or not to read it, and I probably will, because I actually think about this more than I thought I would. So this one is a kind of billed as a Dracula duet, but we have our main character. He is a professor, a music professor in Venice, so the setting is immaculate. It's all set in Venice, Italy. And then you have our main character who is a witch and a vampire slayer, so it's a very Buffy and Angel coded, and she is kind of sent to enroll in the school because she can play the organ, which is his kind of speciality, and enroll as a student and get close to our professor and then kill him. Okay, that's her mandate. However, things may not work out that way, because when she gets there, she quite likes our professor, and you know, one thing leads to another. And also there's this fabulous love story element in that his love, it's quite a tragic story. Back in the day, his love was killed and kind of taken from him, and throughout the centuries she gets reincarnated and he runs back into her in London. And there's that beautiful love story. There's also characters that we get introduced in here called Lenore and Absalom, who are then the main focus of Black Sunshine. So this one, immaculate setting, some cool storyline, great characters, lots of spice. I'd say more spice than storyline, but still, it's good. It's good. That'll keep you going. Black Sunshine. Actually, now books, sort of spoil that, but books 1 and 2 are, they're literally both my favorites, so consider these both at the top spot. So my new obsession is Black Sunshine by Karina Halley. So like I said, Lenore and Absalom, who are the couple in this book, we get introduced to them in Blood Orange very briefly. You don't have to read these, but they're both great. So this is set in modern day San Francisco, which I absolutely love. And not only is it set in San Francisco, Absalom lives in the Westerfield house. So if you know any of the lore around Manson, around Anton LaVey, there's this house in San Francisco called the Westerfield house. It is this gothic masterpiece. It is so wonderfully creepy looking. It is where all the bad stuff happened back in the day. That's like on my list of places to go before I expire. It's incredible. And that's where Absalom lives. I was like, are you effing kidding me? So, I mean, this kind of had me from hello. So the storyline of this is that Lenore so it's her 21st birthday. And she kind of gets kidnapped on her 21st birthday by Absalom and his partner. And they kind of take her and hold her in a dungeon. Now, this is very much enemies to lovers, bullyish, dubious consent. So please kind of go into that. So their relationship starts off on a rocky note, because, you know, he kidnaps her and subjects her to all sorts of things in the beginning of this book. But the reason he's kidnapped her is because he's been watching her, and she is, so who her parents are potentially not her parents. So you kind of learn her backstory, and her parents are actually witches, and they are part of the Witch Hunters Guild. So the same Witch Hunters Guild that our main character in Blood Orange is from. And they've raised her all her life, but they're not her biological parents. So throughout the story, I don't want to say more because I just think it's so much fun to kind of discover everything as you go through Black Sunshine. But also what Black Sunshine refers to is so cool. But everything about this, the Absalom, oh my God, you know, Shadow Daddy, touch her if you die, all-powerful vampire, yes, Absalom, new book boyfriend. I love Lenore. I love their relationship. I love all the story and the backstory of both of their pasts and their history. The setting, like I said, is immaculate. I love San Francisco. Again, it's got that modern element to it, which I really love. Spice is fantastic. This is like top shelf vampire dark romance. There is a second book. I will be reading the second book in this, but this is just... I loved this. And then the other kind of book that takes a top spot is actually a new read by an author that I was so looking forward to reading. And weirdly, the main character is also Lenore in this book. So this is Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. I was so looking forward to this. Kat Dunn's book that I read last year, Bitter Thorn, was one of my favourite books, still one of my favourite books. I loved it, and I was so looking forward to this. I had this on pre-order. This is a beautiful, beautiful special edition of this book. I mean, look at the hardcover. And it says, "For what do you hunger?" And this is actually a Carmilla retelling, and this is the Carmilla retelling that I was waiting for. S.T. Gibson, take note. So this is set, again, sort of in the late 1800s. So it stays true to that kind of Carmilla Dracula era. But we have our main character, Lenore, and she, again, is actually, I think like the first line of the book is, "It starts in blood," which is just so cool. Like, this whole book is feminine rage, is what do you really desire? There's a lot of themes, and I'll go through this, but yeah, it literally starts with blood, is the first line of this book. And so you have Lenore, who, she was in a carriage accident with her parents, and her parents died in the carriage accident, and she was like covered in her mother's blood when they kind of pulled her out, but she was alive. She had no other family until they tracked down this like reclusive aunt of hers who frankly was very abusive to her, kind of kept her locked away in the house. Lenore was desperate to escape, and obviously in this time the only way she knew how to do that was to marry. And you find out that Lenore's parents were, so she's Lady Lenore, so they were like a duke or something like that, like, you know, they had a title, but no money. They lost all their money. So she's like, I've got to use this title to marry rich, to get away from this like crazy aunt of mine, but also, you know, to establish myself, because how else, otherwise I'm just going to end up on the street, right? I've got no money, but I've got a title. So she finds herself this guy who, he's a steel, as in steel, you know, magnate, but it's kind of new money. So he wants a titled wife, and she kind of serves as his kind of conduit into this upper class society, right? in London. So, you know, they get married. She's very beautiful as well. She thinks he's very attractive. But you quickly find out that the marriage is a little bit more transactional in nature. And also she's not been able to have a child, produce an heir, which again, in this, you know, in this era was as a big no, you need to produce that heir, girl. So the marriage is rocky, to say the least. And we kind of meet Lenore, and she's kind of gone through life like doing what was expected of her all the time, doing the right thing, her like whole mission is she's got to make him look good. She's got to help him to, you know, get the business deals to look good in front of people. She's like there, he's stalwart. She's like, you know, she never thinks about herself. And I think that's one of the main themes in this book. So enter Carmilla, who, much like the original novel, if you've read it, again, they come across her just after she's had a carriage accident. They pull this girl out of the carriage accident. They take her back to their kind of like summer house that they've come out of the city to while she's convalescing. And you quickly find out that Camilla's a lot, to say the least. The husband doesn't like her. Lenore's intrigued. So, you know, you can, if you know Camilla, you know Camilla, this is sapphic. But also what I loved overwhelmingly about this is Camilla keeps asking Lenore, what do you want? And Lenore is one of those people, and I have done this all my life, and I'm really trying not to do this. So I connected with the character of Lenore so deeply, like I did with the characters in Bitter Thorn, was, you know, just being people, like when somebody says, what do you want to do? Be like, oh, whatever you want to do. What do you want to drink? Oh, whatever you want to drink. What do you have for dinner? Oh, what do you want to have for dinner? You know, never really asserting yourself, saying what you actually want. And over again, Camilla says to Lenore throughout this book, well, what do you want? And she's like desperately trying to get her, like, what do you hunger for? On a myriad of levels. And because there's also things with food, there's things with control, there's things with intimacy and, you know, pleasure. All of these things, what do you hunger for? And I think as women specifically, we are told to want people to like us first. So we'll do anything to make people like us. And Camilla's like, no, bugger that. Be yourself, be who you are. And either they like you or you don't, you know. And I loved those themes throughout this book. I think it has the best, wonderful feminist self-empowerment. Sorry, I'm getting really excited. Themes in it. It's fabulous. The writing is gorgeous. I wasn't bored for a second. I love this whole storyline. You know, she's not afraid to go there with the graphic, with the blood and the, you know, so if you're sensitive, careful. But I just thought it had so many layers and depth to it. Kat Dunn's writing is immaculate. She's one of my new favorite authors. I will read her grocery list. This is, you know, a 6-star read, as is Black Sunshine. 2 absolute new favorites. They were going on the list so far for my favorites of the year. But yeah, if you only read 2 from this list, these 2, they're incredible. So that was it. Let me know if you've read any great vampire books lately, and I'll speak to you all again very soon. Bye.